Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This video is going to be a video response to a good friend of mine here on YouTube. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description bar below. I'll also leave a link to the video that I'm responding to. My good friend, he raised a very touchy subject surrounding animal cruelty in films and the double standards that can surround animal cruelty. In one regard it can be okay, but in the other regard it's bad. And once again, the horror genre does come under a lot of scrutiny as far as animal cruelty is concerned, because there have been quite a few films that have featured real animal cruelty. Now, to start with, I absolutely hate anything to do with animal cruelty, real animal cruelty. I feel it's absolutely unnecessary, and it's just a very cheap way to get a shock and notoriety. So I think it's very lazy film work, and I feel that it's just sick and it's just plain wrong, and I don't feel there is any sort of excuse for slaughtering an animal for the sake of art. But then you've also got to look behind the scenes and the reasons behind these sorts of things. Now, what I mean by that is a very, very well-known horror film called Cannibal Holocaust. Now, if you're aware of this film and if you've seen it, or even if you haven't, if you're a fan of the horror genre, you have heard about the animal cruelty surrounding this film, especially one scene involving a turtle. Now, initially I dismissed this as absolute garbage and I boycotted the film. But since watching my friend's video, I kind of re-evaluated my opinion on this film. Now, I'm probably never going to see it because I just cannot stomach animal cruelty whatsoever. I'm a big lover of animals, not in a sick, disturbing way, but I've just got a lot of time for them. I think they are, the best. And to see them killed on screen, even if it's not real, I have a really hard time watching it because I feel it's more disturbing than seeing a human killed on film. So when it's real, I just boycott it altogether because, it does upset me and I feel that it's absolutely unnecessary. And I kind of label Cannibal Holocaust as that type of film. Now, to think about it, I kind of changed my thoughts on it a little bit. As I said, I'll probably never watch it, but I can see some value out of that animal cruelty. Now, yes, it is absolutely barbaric. The descriptions that I have actually read are barbaric, very, very shocking, but it is the way of life in these areas of the world. Now, Cannibal Holocaust takes place in a jungle. Now, these natives, apparently, they ate the animals after they were killed. So it kind of feels that it was kind of a documentary style way of doing it. Now, obviously, it's not a documentary, but you see in documentaries hunts, whether it's a lion hunting an antelope or a native hunting something else, and it tends to be okay. But when you get to a horror film, it's not okay. It's just absolutely sick. Whereas Cannibal Holocaust, yes, these animals shouldn't have been killed on screen for the movie, but the fact that they were eaten afterwards kind of gives you a realistic portrayal of life outside the Western world. Now, it's easy to criticize this sort of filmmaking. It's easy to criticize people who hunt their food so barbarically, but this is coming from people who have meat packed in their fridge, and that they have no trouble eating it, although the chances are that animal that you're eating was going through a lot of pain as well. But it's okay because we don't see where that meat came from. We don't see and we don't know what the animal suffered, whether it was a painful death or, an instantaneous death. We don't care because all we see when we see a piece of meat is something to fill the belly when we're hungry. So it's kind of turning a blind eye to the realities of the world. And with films like Cannibal Holocaust, when I stop to think about it, it kind of gives me the impression that Ruggiero Deodato, or however you say his name, he was showing you harsh realities. And that's what the horror genre does, and that's why I think a lot of people tend to stay away from the horror genre and label it as sick, because it shows you the other side of the world. It shows you the side that so many people don't like to see. They like to live in their bubbles, they like to watch fluffy romantic comedies, and they like to think that everything is a happy ever after sort of fairy tale, whereas in reality, you get these things. You get barbaric occurrences, and I think that that's why the horror genre, it really is misunderstood, because instead of being labelled as a realistic portrayal of the world, it's labelled as a sick and morbid view. So I think that is it's a little bit unfortunate. But, that's just the life, the world we live in. Now, there are films that I have a big, big problem with as far as animal cruelty. Now, one is Seed, and number two is Melancholy de Angel. Now, I haven't seen both of these films, so I really can't give you a review, but I've heard more than my fair share about them. Now, at the start of Seed, there is a video depicting animals being tortured. And it's basically a video from PETA, which is an animal organisation. and it just basically showed torture for the sake of it. It didn't have anything to do with the story, but Uwe Boll, the director, just put it in there. And that really comes across as a immature way to get notoriety. Then you've got Melancholy de Angel. Now, this film I will never watch. It just seems way too extreme for me. But that features a slaughtering of a cat. The cat has its throat slit. And I've been told that it's realistic. Now, whether or not that's just a false sort of rumor, I don't know. But if it was realistic, what is the purpose for that cat being killed? Was it, eaten afterwards? I don't think so. I think to kill an animal for the sake of art is very pretentious, and it kind of makes the director feel as though he is God. What gives them the right to say to an animal whether or not they can live? Basically, for the sake of a movie. I just don't feel it is okay. If you did it to a human being, you'd be in jail. And I think that has to be the same sort of, punishment for killing a cat on screen. So Marian Dora, the director of Melancholy de Angel, I think he has to be accountable for what he's done. I think it's disgusting, and for that, I'll never watch his movies, and I'll never respect the guy. So that, in that regard, that is really bad, and that is the reason why I boycott all these sorts of films. Now, there is another film that my friend talked about called Walkabout. Now, it's an Australian classic, and it featured an Aboriginal, which is a native of Australia, hunting a kangaroo. He basically shot the kangaroo with a lot of arrows, and the kangaroo wasn't dead. So I kind of don't agree with that either. But once again, that is nature. That is the way of life in the outback. That is the way that Aborigines survive. You either hunt or you starve. So it's just a basic way of life. And once again, it proves that life isn't so comfortable in every part of the world. So that I can kind of forgive as well, although I definitely have a hard time seeing a kangaroo struggling. And then there's also another film called Wake in Fright. Now that features a real kangaroo cull. Now culling here in Australia, it happens, I don't agree with it, but professional hunters are told by the government to take out a few kangaroos because the population of the kangaroos is way too big. It's overpopulated and it can prove a big problem. So every now and then there's a cull. Now the director has taken archival footage from this cull and put it into the movie. And it does have some sort of value to it because it is depicting how these outback hooligans are so different from the city folk. And I can kind of forgive that because the kangaroos were not killed for the film. They have just taken archival footage and put it in, and you're probably asking, well, what's the difference between that and what Uwe Boll did in Seed? Well, I felt that, by the sounds of it, the animal footage in Seed didn't have any impact on the story whatsoever. Whereas Wake in Fright, it has a big part of it. It really gives you the indication that the outback folk are, a lot more desensitized to violence than the city folk are. So I feel that that works, and as a result of that, I kind of overlooked it as well. So then you've got, as I said, you eat meat, and the fact that you don't, see an animal, you just see something to fill your belly, it's not as bad. But the reality is, lobsters, they're put into boiling hot water alive. That's cruelty. But, as I said, we don't see it. If it was on a movie, we would complain because we're seeing it. It's very visual. But when you don't see it, when you don't hear about it, it's okay. So I think that is a little bit of a double standard. I think a lot of people put a lot of criticism on the horror genre because it's not afraid to visualize the harsh realities. But yeah, I just feel that you have to stop and think a little bit. You have to think of the purposes behind these depictions of very uncomfortable scenarios and the motives behind it. Where before you go out there and just completely slag it off like I did. I'm guilty of this, but after seeing this video, I had a lot of thought into it, and I've kind of reevaluated my views on animal cruelty because sometimes films that depict animal cruelty are done in a way that it doesn't come across as wasteful. So yeah, that's my view on the topic. It's a bit of a long video, so I hope I made sense. So this is going to be a video response, so please check out the video I am replying to. So I'm going to be doing a review soon, hopefully. So until then, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.